everyone. I'm Noreen Purcell Dillman, the creator of the Healthy Peaceful podcast. In the About My Podcast section, I describe myself as former attorney, YouTuber, natural food chef, wellness guru. No, that's not a typo. It actually means precious one. If you haven't been following me, you may be wondering what this podcast of 4 years is all about. Well, this is a place where I interview individuals in order to explore topics pertaining to the meaning of health and well-being, personal and collective consciousness, and maximizing full human potential. In today's episode, prepare to embark on a transformative journey with me as I delve into the ancient system of healing known as Ayurveda. In this series titled My Ayurvedic Odyssey, I invite you to join me as I interview individuals who have undergone the rigorous study of Ayurveda at Maharishi International University. Each episode offers a glimpse into the personal and professional journeys of these individuals, exploring how Ayurveda found them and how they've integrated its timeless wisdom into their lives to enhance overall well-being. My guests share insights and anecdotes that offer a glimpse into the profound impact Ayurveda has had on their lives and the lives of their clients. But our exploration doesn't stop there. We also delve into the future of Ayurveda and the creative ways these individuals envision promoting its growth as a practical system of self-care. With its focus on eliminating the root causes of conditions and improving overall health, my guests offer innovative strategies for integrating Ayurveda into modern healthcare systems and society at large. Join me on this enlightening journey as we uncover the timeless wisdom of Ayurveda and its potential to revolutionize modern wellness. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or new to the world of Ayurveda, this series promises to inspire, educate, and empower you on your own path to holistic health and well-being. Good afternoon, Radhika. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so let's jump right in. We're continuing our series on, individuals and how they came to Ayurveda and how Ayurveda has transformed their lives personally and professionally. So I'd like you to just chat for a moment and a little bit about your background, how you came to Ayurveda.
Okay. Yeah. I grew up in a health conscious household. My parents were kind of hippies and they were really into eating organic foods, and most of our meals were home cooked. We never ate fast food. We didn't eat junk food. But you know, yet when I was in middle school, I was diagnosed with something called Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune condition. And at the time, my dad particularly was like, there must be some way to cure this. But, in allopathic medicine, they'll tell you that there's no cure. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. You're going to take this medication for the rest of your life. So I just carried on with that, continued to live my healthy lifestyle, exercising, eating mostly organic, home-cooked meals. And then when I was in college, I spent a lot of time with my godmother, who was really into Ayurveda. And when I talked to her about it, it was something that really resonated with me. And when I graduated, I ended up living with her for a couple of years. And when I lived with her, I didn't know this at the time, but, reflecting back as an Ayurvedic practitioner now, I'll say that I ended up following a light diet for the duration of time that I lived with her, which is really good for clearing out ama or toxins that are in the body. And when I was living with her, I noticed that my digestion was a lot better and that I was feeling better in various ways. And then,
So this is a light Ayurvedic diet. Is that what you're referring to?
yeah, it was like a light tridoshic diet. I was
Okay.
eating mostly quinoa and soups, very light foods. I was eating seasonal vegetables, just steamed and spiced, and it was a very simple diet.
Hmm.
But it was what I needed, I feel.
Yeah.
And it just came to me. So I was very fortunate to have that. And then my godmother moved to Los Angeles, and I went to go visit her there for her birthday. And interestingly, as soon as I got off the airplane, she was doing panchakarma at a clinic in the Palisades. So she said, just Uber there and meet me, we'll have lunch. So I get right off the airplane, I go straight to a panchakarma clinic. And
So for viewers and listeners, panchakarma is essentially, do you want to say a little bit about what that is?
yeah, it's panchakarma is Ayurveda's seasonal detox. So each season there's a karma or an action that is used to cleanse the body. And they say that when you do panchakarma, it clears your past 7 years of toxins from the body. Um, so that's really remarkable. And it can be used in many different ways. I mean, you can use panchakarma doing mostly nourishing treatments that are addressing vata, which is the air and space elements, or you can do very cleansing therapies in panchakarma. But overall, it's a detox. So in spring, there's vamana chikitsa generally, which is induced vomiting. In the United States, we don't usually do that. We do nasya, which is drops of oil in the nose. You can also inhale powders, but it's using the nose to clear kapha. In the
Is
summer,
that why the nasya is important for the spring? Because spring is the kapha season when we
exactly.
have a lot of congestion and heaviness, especially in the upper chest area, the respiratory area.
Exactly. That's exactly right,
Okay,
Noreen. Brilliant.
great.
Yeah, so as you've noted, each season the karma corresponds with what's happening seasonally, what's been
Okay.
accumulated and aggravated. So at the end of summer, it's bloodletting, which helps to clear rakta dhatu, which is
Mhm.
kind of like a bonus dosha. It's not really a dosha, but in a way, it's sort of considered one. The blood. So you're going to cleanse the blood at the end of summer. Your blood's gotten really hot. Toxins have accumulated there. And then in the fall, it's
Now I know we don't do bloodletting in the U.S. in terms of my familiarity with that is in terms of leeches and that sort of therapy.
right.
So what do we do as an alternative to clear to purify the blood, which is the kind of the hot blood at the end of summer, the pitcha season.
Yeah, exactly. I would generally the recommendation in the United States is to just go and do uh, donating blood. You donate your blood.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's other ways to really address it.
Yes.
Right.
I
Okay.
mean, that's debatable. Some people will say that donating blood isn't, it's just pointless, but I mean, plenty of people say it's effective.
Okay.
It's more specific when you're in India because they'll take blood from a specific part of the body, whereas,
I
when
see.
you're donating blood, it's mostly just going to be from that inner elbow area. Um,
Okay. So getting back to your coming into Ayurveda and your journey with Ayurveda, um, we can get a little more into Panchakarma, and I appreciate you telling us about the kind of the seasonal versions of Panchakarma. And actually, what you just said about Panchakarma being the detox and that you can actually clear 7 years of toxins. I mean, I think that's amazing, because we have they just have such a cumulative effect of building up in the body. So, and I just don't think I've heard that before, that I didn't hear the word seven before in terms of actually clearing 7 years of toxins. So
yeah.
that's, yeah. So you're in LA and you're going to have a Panchakarma in LA.
So yes, so I was in LA and my godmother was having panchakarma and I was
Okay.
meeting her for lunch. And I had been previously working in a raw food restaurant and I had the restaurant had suddenly shut down and it had given me a moment to examine what I really wanted to be doing with my life. And I decided at that time I want to study Ayurveda and I want to study Reiki. So here I am at this Panchakarma clinic, and I had lunch there with my godmother, and I met the Ayurvedic practitioner who was in charge, Marta Sofer. And then when we were talking, she ended up offering me a job there as a Panchakarma technician. She told me she was going to teach me everything that I needed to know. I said, do I need to go to school still to study? She said, no, I'll teach you everything that I know. And so I had this really amazing opportunity to go and learn Ayurveda and in a really hands-on environment. And that was just an amazing start for
Yeah, yeah, that's a really unique opportunity that the stars were aligned for you to study with Marta. A little bit more about Marta. Do you want to say a little bit more about her and the work that she does in LA and
Yeah,
her spa? Yeah.
Marta, she specializes in panchakarma, which is that seasonal detox. She actually used to go to MIU, that was Maharishi International University, is where she originally studied Ayurveda. And she also was able to study Ayurveda in India. And she's been working with clients for a long time. And now she is Surya is at the proper hotel, and they have a few locations, and yeah, it's going really well for her, and I'm really
That's
happy.
great. That's great. Yeah. So, how long were you working with Marta at Surya Spa?
I was working with her for about 2 years.
Okay. And so initially, you said it was more of a hands-on experience with Ayurveda in terms of learning from a seasoned practitioner. And I know later you decided to embark on an academic journey. A little bit about that.
Yeah, so I during COVID, the Panchakarma clinic was closed,
Okay.
and I still found that there was, more written knowledge that I wanted to have. And I had originally, before I met Marta, my plan was to study at Maharishi International University online. I kept getting ads for the school, and I thought I'm going to study there. But, you know, along the way, I ended up working for Marta. So when COVID hit, I thought this is a great opportunity for me to use this time and go to school. And that's what I ended up doing. And it was such an amazing experience.
Yeah, yeah. So you enrolled in the Masters of Ayurveda program at Maharishi International University. And how about surprises during the course of that program or challenges? I mean, obviously, in any academic program, you're going to face challenges. What really resonated for you? What did you find challenging? Any surprises along the way?
Definitely. When I started the program, I everything came very effortlessly to me. I mean, there was a lot of review at first. And then when we got into the pathology in the second year, it was a little bit more new information because I hadn't gotten into that kind of specificity before, excuse me. And I think one thing that during my studies, in especially early in my studies, there's this huge emphasis on consciousness in Maharishi Ayurveda. And it didn't it didn't really resonate for me right away. I was like, oh, we're spending all this time talking about consciousness. Why aren't we talking about Ayurveda? When I got to
I
my
can relate to that.
I know. When I got to my third year, though, it was just like everything clicked. That final
Mm.
semester where they talk about the skin and it brings everything together. Um, I just sort of, I don't know if you want to call it an awakening, I had this like profound realization through my studies that consciousness is really the most important aspect of what we're doing in Ayurveda.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is an amazing discovery, and it's kind of funny that for most of us, it takes the 3 years to actually, uh, you know, what is the isn't Roger Ram's book Consciousness is All There Is or something like that? So it takes us that long to uh, just wake up to that. There's no doubt. So yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think for me it was the the courses, some of their courses are labeled physiology as consciousness, and I would look at that and think about, well, what do you mean by that? Um, but I think what I realized is, in regular meditation practice and refining the nervous system, that's just pivotal in terms of overall health. And just, establishing that regular practice where, we're settling because we're just so bombarded, and our nervous system is so overtaxed. So,
Definitely, definitely.
yeah. And I think that, because like you, I also embarked on a journey of, first Ayurveda and then food, and worked as a chef for about 10 years actually, thinking that food was the key to health. And it's certainly very, very pivotal, but I think if um, you're not really connecting the dots with the other aspects, it's one aspect. So,
Definitely. I mean, you could be eating really good food. Like I grew up eating really healthy home cooked meals, right? But I still
mhm.
an issue manifest, which I want to mention that I was actually cured of that disease. I was cured of Hashimoto's disease when I was working for Marta at the clinic through Ayurveda.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
incredible, but without, even with a good diet, it's not enough. And I can't tell you how often that I have clients. I'd say most of the clients that come to me feel that they are eating healthy food. They feel like they
Mm,
are,
yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. Because I know that you have a particular interest in food, and that currently you do have your own private practice, right, with regard to Ayurveda.
yeah, that's correct.
And so you're seeing clients on a regular basis. And are you finding that most clients are think that their diet is healthy, but in fact maybe creating some problems for them?
Definitely. Most clients think that their diet is, really healthy and when they come to me, they think that they're just going to be given herbs actually. So really
Well, of
funny.
course,
Yeah. But it's, it comes down to client education and just,
Yeah.
explaining, that we're all different. So the same foods that are good for one person are not going to be good for another person. Our digestions work in different ways, and even a lot of people will think their digestion is good, but they don't realize that, even simple problems like having gassiness, bloating, constipation, or loose bowel movements can indicate that your digestion is not balanced. So that's a really big emphasis.
Well, I think that one of the coolest things about Ayurveda is you realize, when you start getting into the knowledge is, how digestive issues can manifest in other ways in the body or in the mind, and like the relation between, constipation and insomnia.
Yeah.
And so once you become aware of, and then you realize how important, just the daily purification of the body is in terms of just keeping yourself, at, a relatively, stable place of health.
Yeah, I appreciate what, you're thinking about emotions as well there. Because the mind and the gut are so connected and even you mentioned constipation. I'm thinking, when you have a blockage, a mental blockage or like an emotional blockage, it can cause
Yeah.
holding there as well. And it's so
Yeah, it's sort of like, you can ask yourself the question, well, what am I holding on to?
great.
Or I mean, people, or what am I unwilling to release? So just realizing that the physical manifestation is, has an emotional component and a mental component, which Ayurveda doesn't discard, but actually allows.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. Um, let's see. Now, I know you're working with clients with Ayurveda and you're also teaching Ayurveda. Is that correct?
I'm a teaching assistant in the master's program at Maharishi International University. And for the last 2 semesters, I've been working with students who are in their final semester. So that's mostly talking about nervous system issues, which again, I said was just so pivotal for me in my being able to connect consciousness and to everything, So it's such a profound semester, and I love working with students through that. It's really, really special. And then we also study the immune system and the hematologic system in that same semester.
Yeah, I often hear when people are teaching that they learn more from teaching than they do as students. Has that been the case for you? How about surprises or things that you can share about teaching Ayurveda and
I'm a
being an
sponge.
educator of Ayurveda? What?
I'm a sponge. I love it. I'm just constantly learning. I learned a significant amount when I was a student, and now as a teaching assistant, I'm just continuing to learn. The Vaidya, or the Ayurvedic doctor who teaches the class, he never gives the same lecture twice. So every
Yeah,
time,
we love that.
yeah,
That's you. Of course, you're probably referring to Vijay Manohar, right?
yes, Vaidya Manohar. I just love Vaidya Manohar. He's
I know, I know. I could listen to him all day and all usually it's all night, right?
right. He's such a wealth of knowledge. So I feel like I just constantly get to learn more from him, and that's such a joy. And
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
I find my students are so inspiring. I love to see how they progress in their studies. I love to hear about what's inspiring to them and what they want to do with their practices. And um, it's just really beautiful to be a part of that.
That's great. That's a wonderful opportunity for you, Radhika. I know you talked about professionally and also with regard to the Hashimoto's, the autoimmune disease. Are there other ways that you tell me about some of the ways that you've incorporated Ayurvedic principles into your daily life?
Ayurveda has been incorporated into probably every aspect of my life. From, what time I wake up in the morning to my morning routine to, the importance of having an established routine, cooking all my meals fresh, eating foods that are best for my digestive type. And then as a mother, and having a family, cooking in a way that can be balancing for everyone is an art of its own. Um, you know,
For sure.
Maintaining that connection to consciousness is at the forefront. Oh, of course. Practicing my TM twice a day is very important to me,
Mhm.
and trying to just maintain that awareness during the day that really consciousness is all that there is. Everything is
Mhm.
consciousness. Everyone is consciousness, and bringing that perspective in really just makes life more blissful.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, wonderful. Now, Ayurveda, it's not yet mainstream. Is there any way that you can envision Ayurveda being more mainstream, more accessible? And any particular steps that you think are important to try to achieve this?
Oh, wow. Um, well,
It could just be something small, but just or it could be a grand vision. It's, just sort of get your
it
thoughts.
my personal dream would
Mm.
be to have little pop-up Ayurveda clinics in areas that are, underserved, with like underprivileged communities, people that probably couldn't afford Ayurvedic consultations, because it tends to be expensive and the herbs are expensive. And I'd love to see Ayurveda as something that's more accessible to everyone. Um, and, you know, we say that herbs are really just a bonus to the treatment. Really, 100% of the treatment is diet and lifestyle. There's so much you can do without herbs. So I'd love to see that one day, and be able to bring that to people who otherwise couldn't afford it. And at least in my personal practice right now, I I'm willing to work with people, I have a sliding scale for people who need it, who ask. I want to make.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. You made a couple of really great points. The quote is, it's on my, I'm thinking of it, but I don't think I have it quite right, that without food, without, if diet is no use, and do you know that quote about, essentially it's a quote that if diet is poor, then herbs are of no use. And if diet is good, then essentially you don't need the herbs.
Definitely.
Okay. And I guess you could say diet and lifestyle. Um, so the point you made was really great, that, diet and lifestyle are really 100%, and herbs are a bonus. And also, those are things that people can access very easily, diet and lifestyle.
Mhm.
These are not expensive, these are not expensive interventions.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
The big thing with Ayurveda, and actually I think Dr. Nader has a new book coming out, or it's out already, about habit change, is working with people on habits. It's one thing to have an idea, it's one thing to start something. And I know you're working with clients on, and seeing them probably, obviously more than once. So you're following up with them. What do you see as the biggest obstacles, and what are some tips, tools that they can use to really, really just kind of get going with this?
Yeah. Okay. I guess there are three different challenges that are coming into my mind. One is when people try to take on too much at once. And
Mm.
some clients are really enthusiastic, and I love that. And they want to just dive in and change everything all at one time. But an important concept in Ayurveda is that things become pseudo-suitable for a person when they've been doing it for a long time. It doesn't mean that it's good for you, but that your body has adapted to that habit or that practice, and or that food, or whatever it is. So when we change our habits, we want to gradually do that. And when I see clients just trying to jump right in and make those changes like that, it it tends to not last. They can't maintain that. So I like to encourage my clients to just start with three things. I'll usually pick, my top three priorities for that client and say, why don't you start with these three things? I'll give them different directions on how to gradually assimilate those practices. Maybe it's something like they've been drinking coffee. So I don't want to just stop drinking coffee tomorrow. I want them to drink less coffee and replace the coffee with a different habit. So that's one thing that I would say is important. And then
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I think, you getting this laundry list of things for people to do and that they're going to implement, they're just, it's just probably not going to happen. So really focusing on the top priorities and following up with regard to those, and
yes.
providing support and encouragement and feedback, these are probably really important things. And then you made the point of, making gradual changes versus, oh, okay, I'm going from, 4 cups of coffee today to, cold turkey. That's really tough.
Yeah.
You talked about habituation and habits that are not necessarily good, but they're just they're habits, and people have been doing them for maybe years, maybe decades,
Mhm.
such as maybe coffee.
Right.
I think in Ayurveda they call that okasapnia,
That's right.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Um, And is there anything else in working with clients that you think is important
Yes. So
to
another one,
really help their habit, help the changes stick?
definitely. I think a big challenge for a lot of clients is diet itself. There's a
Yeah.
big emphasis on, eating freshly prepared foods and eating specific foods that are beneficial to you. So, there are some challenges within that. One is just cooking itself. Clients have a
Mm.
hard time finding the time to cook 3 meals a day. And when people are not doing well, especially I've noticed with like mental health challenges, it's even harder to motivate yourself to take that action to cook for yourself. It can be very difficult for people. Um, and there are ways to, get help with that. You can maybe meal planning is really helpful. I've found that when my kids were really little and they didn't want me to cook dinner at night because they were fussy at night, I would make dinner when I was making breakfast. I would make it at the same so that it would be ready.
Absolutely.
And it worked really well. So I found a way, And so I
Yeah.
like to try and problem solve with my clients if they feel like that's going to be a challenge for them. Um, I'll do my best to try and help them figure out a solution depending on what the specific challenge is. Um, and then, you know, so changing your diet is huge. I mean, it's
It
huge.
is.
And even coming up with
I think we really underestimate how, I mean, you don't because you're working directly with clients and you see it. But I think I can underestimate myself, how challenging that is for people. And plus people are very, they're attached to certain foods and, there's an emotional component with food. So it's, that's probably, one of the hardest things for people to shift.
spot on. Yeah, in a
Yeah.
similar way, it just needs to be gradual. It needs to be a gradual change. And yeah, some clients, if they're able to, they can hire someone to cook for them. But even if you can't afford to do that, like I said, there are like various workarounds like meal planning and thinking ahead about, what am I doing on this day and when will how much time do I have to cook? Okay, what are some easier, quicker meals that I can make that are still within these guidelines? So I try to help my clients come up with things like that if they need that assistance.
Do you do any cooking classes?
I don't right now. But I do link clients up with people who offer cooking classes if they
Mhm.
need that assistance.
Cool. And how about tools for cooking that, I mean, somebody who isn't too interested in cooking, but they want to adopt the Ayurvedic approach of eating fresh at each meal, which is challenging. And well, let's first say why that's important.
Yes. So
Freshly, let me just back up. What I meant by that is freshly prepared food. So basically no leftovers and you're preparing the food. It's hopefully that day,
mm,
uh, that is
yeah,
the idea. Yeah.
that is the idea. So our food has prana or kind of like life energy, and it needs to be cooked not not too much and not too little. It needs to be cooked just the right amount. Um, Otherwise it will lose that it will not have as much of that life force energy. It will not be as easy to digest and assimilate. We really want to have cooked foods because it's harder to digest raw foods. It's easier to digest cooked foods. And when you digest your food well, um, tend to not have as many issues. But when you are not completely digesting your food, which can be, like maybe you're passing the food too quickly or maybe too slowly. Both of those scenarios can create toxins in the body. We call it ama in Ayurveda. these like surface level toxins, we'll say. And that can create a lot of issues like fatigue, heaviness, um, stickiness, buildup, congestion, things are clogged. That all comes from ama. When you put your food in the fridge, it takes on the coldness of the fridge, that air circulation that, gives it a little bit more cold, like sluggish energy to your food just from being in the fridge itself. So we like to eat our food within 24 hours, ideally.
Yeah, yeah. And how about do you have some shortcuts where you mentioned one of them was meal planning. But how about tools?
Tools, you mean like cooking,
Like the Instant Pot?
okay. Yeah,
I don't know
so
if you use that, but
I don't have an Instapot, but I have
oh, okay.
I have a Vita Clay at home.
Is
It's
that pretty much similar?
it's like a slow cooker, like with a
Okay.
pot, and you can make rice in it, you can make stew in it,
But it's something you can put the food in and walk away from.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to know that it's not like this is going to be intense cooking.
No, it's really not. I mean, even like a very simple dinner could be dal, which is just, I mean, the best kind of dal probably for most people is with split mung beans because they're very easy to digest for most people. And all you have to do to make dal is put the dal and the water into the pot and let it cook. Walk away. It maybe takes like maybe 30 minutes to make a pot of dal. And then once it's all cooked, then you can toast your spices and just mix it right in. And speaking of tools, I think the first thing that came into my head was a tudka pan. I love my tudka pan. It's like this small, almost like a bowl with a handle coming off of it.
How do you spell that?
Tadka.
Oh,
Tudka.
okay. I'm not familiar with the pan, but okay. So it's not like a tarka.
I don't know what a tarka is. I'd have
Oh,
to
okay.
look
I think
that
a
up.
tarka is with the ghee and the spices, but okay. So the pan is called tadka. And
Yeah,
is it meant for essentially blooming the spices with the ghee?
yeah, exactly. So you just put
Oh,
your ghee and your spices and then you put it right on the fire and let it cook and you'll smell it. You'll know when it's done.
hmm.
Certain spices you'll put in earlier. It doesn't need to be that complicated though. I mean, if
Sure,
it just depends
sure.
on the person, how complicated you want to make it.
Yeah, but if people want, they can do this. Um, I think in the culinary world they call this a tarka. They prepare the tarka, which is the ghee and the spices, just at they can do it right at the end and then put
Yeah.
it into the. Okay, great.
Exactly. Yeah, just do it right at the
Yeah.
end and then use that same little Tudka pan and mix it into the food and then it's good to go. And khichdi is a similar meal like that. And it's a little heavier. I mean, you could have khichdi for lunch. So you just put your rice, your dal, and your water into a pot, let it cook, walk away. In a separate pan, you can chop up some veggies, saute them, put the spices in with the veggies so that the spices get toasted and then dump it into your khichdi, mix it all up. It's done. It's a very easy, quick meal.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So easy and quick makes all of this possible, for a busy schedule is awesome. Awesome, Radhika. Ayurveda is continuing to gain recognition around the US and even globally. What opportunities and challenges do you foresee for its integration into our modern healthcare system?
Hmm. Um, I think it would probably be very similar to traditional Chinese medicine that's been incorporated a little bit more, where things like acupuncture are covered by health insurance, at least in California. I don't know about other places. Um,
Sure. Most states, acupuncture would be covered. Most states, I believe. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I think Ayurveda could be similarly incorporated. And then as an Ayurvedic practitioner who I studied integrative medicine and
Hmm.
um I think it's very easy to incorporate the two of those together. Ayurveda tends to have a more prevention focused um, method, and then allopathic medicine is really good for treating like emergency situations. I wouldn't want to treat an emergency situation with Ayurveda. I would want my client to go to the hospital, things like that. There are also issues that allopathic medicine says can't be treated, or, I've worked with clients. I worked with a client who was worried that they would be put on dialysis. Um, and their doctor actually suggested that they should see an Ayurvedic practitioner, which was really cool. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. So his,
Oh, I actually want to back up a little bit. You're in what's known, you're practicing in a state that's known as a health freedom state. So a lot of practitioners, so you have a lot more flexibility and liberty to work with clients in a way that, practitioners in states that are not health freedom states wouldn't have the ability to diagnose and treat and that sort of thing. So,
right.
um, but yeah, so tell me about the client you were working with that was was supposed to receive dialysis, or that was the next step.
Yeah,
That's pretty serious.
it's very serious. And, his doctor, thankfully, I mean, he didn't know, with allopathic medicine, what else can you do? But hey, he sent him to me, and he's been working on his diet and his lifestyle. I'd say, every client's different. Um,
Yeah,
it is that they need to work on, but we just kind of uncover those causative factors. What's causing this problem um, for you specifically? And then let's try and
yeah.
remove those causes. Let's, change things. So he's doing better and better and better. And it's really great to see that.
Wow, that's a success story. I love it. That's wonderful. Wow, wow. Well, I heard on a podcast. I forget the name of the podcast, but an Ayurvedic podcast about the Vaidya said that it was the Vaidya who does the podcast. He says, well, Ayurveda is there for the, it's essentially the medicine for the leftovers or something like that, or, healthcare for the leftovers, meaning that people are really at the end of their rope, and they're looking at, uh, various serious treatments in modern medicine that they're not too enamored of, or looking forward to. And they don't necessarily improve the situation. They just alleviate symptoms, not remove the cause. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah. I'd,
Well, oh, what did you want to say, Radhika?
oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of the clients that I've seen, even working at the Panchakarma clinic or in my practice now, it's generally they've gone to Western medicine. They've seen a doctor. They've been to Mayo Clinic. They've done all these other things first, and Ayurveda is kind of like their last, like,
It's a last resort.
last resort. It's work. It's not, you do have to put in effort with Ayurveda. You're not just gonna
That's
pop
true.
a pill. You're gonna have to, like we talked about, you're gonna have to change your habits. You're probably gonna have to change your diet. Um, it's an effort, but the results are generally very good. I haven't seen anyone have bad results yet. I've only seen people have good results. So
Well, that says it all. There's no doubt. So, on that note, where can our viewers and listeners find you? If somebody wants to get in touch, do you have a website or
yes, I have a website. My website is www.ayurvedama.com. And from my website, you can find my phone number, my email address, and my
right?
social. links as well.
Now, is Ma a reference to mom, or is this the Vedic Ma, or
Vedic ma, but mom too. I'm a mom too.
okay. All right, that's great. I love it. Um, I know that you've been studying Sanskrit as well, and I obviously Sanskrit's very much a vibrational language and very integral to Ayurveda. Do you want to say anything about that before we conclude, or
Um,
it may not necessarily be relevant to your clients, or maybe it will be, maybe it is in some way, that just kind of your love of Sanskrit and accessing the language, and do
yeah,
you feel so you can go deeper in the knowledge in that regard?
Sanskrit was one of the first languages, and a lot of other languages came out of that. One that's closely related to Sanskrit is German, and I speak German, so it's helped me to learn Sanskrit with greater ease. A lot of ancient texts in Ayurveda are written in Sanskrit. So it's helpful to have some working knowledge of that terminology. I mean, you can find translations too, but not always like spot on translations. So it's nice to be able to understand it a little bit. And then I think even just listening to the Vedas in Sanskrit is very impactful. It's something that we did in our studies at Maharishi International University, listening to the Vedas. And that recitation and the vibration of the Sanskrit, it's just like, I think sound vibrations are very powerful healers. I think in a way, it's said that we're all sound vibrations, I am sound. So sound healing is can be very potent, and even just listening to what you listen to. I mean, and it just reminds me of a concept that we talked about in school about um how we use our senses, right? So you can
Yeah.
overuse your hearing sense, you can underuse it, you can misuse it. Misusing the sense of hearing might be listening to things that are unwholesome, but a really great way to use your sense of hearing is to listen to things that are big, things that are, of good vibration.
Mm,
So I don't know, that's just
mm. No, that's a really good point. I think you bring up some wonderful points that Sanskrit, the language, and also in chanting and music, it does have a vibrational quality, and it's resonating on all levels, mental, emotional, and physical, and it can be very uplifting. On the other hand, if we're listening to, very loud, heavy metal, that also has an impact as well. So just being realistic regarding that. And also just sound is a very, it's there's a subtle quality there with sound. It has the vibration of sound in terms of it's one of our more subtle senses. So I think, keeping that in mind as well. Awesome. Well, great. Well, Radhika, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your Ayurvedic journey, how you came to Ayurveda, how you came to study Ayurveda and work in Ayurveda, and how you bring it out into the world. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. And just again, for viewers and listeners, your website, www.ayurvedama, and that's Ayurveda followed by ma, ma.com. Great. Thank you, Radhika.